Welcome to the Don't Die Rusty podcast. I'm Rick Hanson, and we will be talking about living, not dying. We're all in this adventure together, and we will be interviewing people who inspire us to live our best lives. People with various backgrounds who will walk us down the trails they took to not die rusty. Adventure and life are many things to many people. It could be a sprint or an endurance race, but with each adventure, we become a better version of us. We hope you keep chasing those dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty. Well, hello, Don't Die Rusty Nation. What a night it's going to be. I have Kelley Lovelace on with me right now. He's in a vehicle in Missouri,
Atchison,
Kansas.
Kansas, baby.
Atchison, Kansas. And then I have my niece Sierra Obler, who is taking her husband to the field, which is amazing. I mean, it's 7:30 at night, and it's interesting for that. Hopefully, she pops in when she gets here. But I wanted to have her to talk tonight too because you know, last week I did the episode of just my views and my hopes, and I kind of went on a tangent. And I think every once in a while, I think you do need to go on a tangent and just say how you believe. And so I did that. And then I was it's interesting because I had people message me more about when I gave accolades to the kids these days that have a lot of stuff going for them. They have dreams, and they have they have their together a lot. There's more out there. They get a bad rap, but I understand Gen Z, and they're starting to kick some butt. And then I also see change in morality, spirituality, faith, and I also see it's turning in the right direction. I will say, in my opinion. What do you think, Kelley?
I think what we're seeing is a trend back towards truth, at least specifically the search for truth. I think that our young people, the 20 somethings, have heard all of this stuff and are sorting through it looking for those nuggets of truth, and they're smart enough and intelligent enough to read the inconsistencies in the messages that they're receiving, whether it's from a liberal side or a conservative side. The inconsistencies, they're there, and then they're filling in the gaps with what they know to be true. um I'm impressed. Like, I personally have 4 somethings that are my children now. They're all kind of in that age range, 19 to 28. And the things that I'm seeing them do and the common sense that they seem to um, have, and the way that they are desiring to live is pretty impressive. And I do believe there is a swing back to the spiritual. I think there is a seeking or a searching for purpose and direction. So, um, I'm glad to see a lot of the things taking place that are taking place within, I guess it's that we've been talking about the Gen Zs, right? Um, we're the Gen Xers, or the very end of that, Rick, I think. And then you got the millennials. I don't know all of them, down through there, but what we're looking at is a swing back to, I think the term was used, grassroots beliefs and the grassroots movement, something that's solid and consistent.
Yeah, and I do believe that. I mean, I look at the people I'm around a lot. I mean, and like I said, I have my nieces and nephews, and I have friends, kids, and and stepkids here, you know, and I look and they're, you know, when I went back to college, I thought I don't want to teach these little son of a guns because they don't have a care in the world. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
they just were. There was a different mentality, but I think you know they talk about the generations, like the generations that you work hard, then the kid, then that son or kid help doesn't want their kid to go through what they did, and then they, you know, how it goes up and then it goes back down because you got to start from scratch again. And I think in some instances that we're not starting from scratch, but I think we're in the middle there. I
Yeah,
think.
there's a there's an old Middle Eastern proverb that says that hard times make strong men make good times create weaker men inevitably create hard times, and hard times create strong men. So it's that cycle, right?
Yep.
Where the somebody has to step up and do the hard stuff. And when we don't have people that are willing to step up and do the hard stuff, then it gets hard. Everything gets hard for everybody.
Yeah, and you know, I've seen. Here's what I've seen. Like I have a friend that her son didn't want to go to school. Well, he just graduated, and he started his own business, and
Hmm.
he's 18 and kicking ass. I mean,
Yeah.
he has that
Yeah.
mindset. And the other funny thing is, like, I talked about this in the episode last week's episode too. Is I I was talking about like organized sports for like people are starting these kids out at 6, 7, 8, whatever, and they think they're pros already, and they want them to be this and that, and then they have referees, and they aren't, you know, like I was saying, like if you had pickup basketball or football or whatever sport you're doing when you were a kid, when I was since I'm a Gen Xer, you have to make me feel old, but anyway, uh, but we had to make our own calls. We didn't have that referee there. They didn't have,
Yeah.
and we learned how to talk to each other. And we may not like a call at times, but they all kind of evened out. You know what I mean? When we did that,
Yeah.
and I see. So living here in where I live in the Black Hills, I've seen lot more kids falling away from organized sports, we'll say, and they're doing like mountain biking and they're doing other things that are active, but they're not getting into that. And I see the social aspects of this because I'm a kind of around them, and it's amazing to me. You know, sometimes I think we push those. We don't let kids be kids anymore. We weren't,
Hmm.
and now we are, and I think they're growing up differently. Kind of, kind of a back to the Gen X kind of thing. Maybe I don't know.
Yeah.
And I know I'm using generations, but I just see I just see things that are good. I have a cousin that his two sons are they're hard working, and they had focus, and that's what they
Right.
do. And he's one of them that texts me, and he's around. Actually, he's around these age kids because that's where um, he works at a Votech, and he gets to see this every day.
Hmm.
And he said that was a good thing to say, but I just see this, and like I said, I'm more with the focus. I'm really happy about that, but I'm really more interested in like I, I'm not gonna keep on banging this drum or whatever you want to call it. I'm not, but you know, you have kids going to spiritual things, faith-based things in the thousands now, where even 4 or 5 years ago you didn't see it because I think they were intimidated. of what they believed in. They were maybe hiding it, and now nobody's hiding that they have faith, or
Well,
very few are.
I don't know if they were hiding from it or running from it as much as they just didn't know. Like, you and I grew up with church around me, and my grandparents were churchgoers, and I went to church. Like that was just part of our weekly deal. Um, and then it wasn't until, I was older, I started to realize that there was kind of an an exodus from what is church. And you started seeing kids growing up without having any idea of what that was outside of maybe a Christmas service with grandma or an Easter an Easter service with their parents, like it was something you did once or twice a year, and they didn't understand church. And to be honest, I think that there were a lot of kids that probably didn't understand who God was or who Jesus is outside of hearing his name used after an uncle or a dad hit their thumb with a hammer. Like I I just feel that way. And so we got a lot of kids, we got a lot of people specifically that just didn't know. They didn't know, and there was no one there to direct them or to guide them. Um, what I witnessed in the church world was, if you build it, they'll come, like Field of Dreams. So if we build this big sanctuary and slap church on the side and put a steeple on it with a cross, they're going to know what it is and they're going to show up. And what I suddenly realized is that's not true. We got so many people that don't know what that's about, right? This faith journey. And with some of our leaders, and Charlie Kirk is one of those guys. I think there's more. I think I can't Ben Pierce, Dr. Ben. I can't think of his last name. The surgeon that was the
Yeah.
Surgeon General for a while. He's a man of faith, and he talked about it openly. And Charlie Kirk's talking about it openly, and you start to hear other people really talk about their faith more openly. And now you pique the interest of some young people. Like, well, what are you talking about? Um, was it 2 years ago that there was a big revival that took place down in Asbury, Kentucky, um, and it went for weeks, and there was a spiritual awakening in that area. And you look at that and you go, "Wow, what was that about?" Um, I had people that I knew, friends of mine, or pastor friends, former classmates, that attended that and said, "You wouldn't believe the hunger that this generation has for the spiritual. Like they're seeking God, and they don't know they're seeking God. They're looking for that spiritual connection." And uh, so I see the swing. So we've moved from a generation that didn't know much at all about God to a generation that's hearing about Him and seeking Him and wanting more of that. Right? Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And earlier when you were talking, I just about being rooted in faith, you're right, because I didn't know. I'll admit,
Mm-hmm.
probably, I didn't know why I was going to church, but every Sunday I was going to church.
Yeah.
Or
Yep.
and and you went, you listened. I suppose sometimes the sermon hit me, sometimes it didn't. But you're young and you don't know. But at least you you have the roots that are there.
Yeah.
And then that's what the reason I was laughing or smiling is because you taught me what I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I hate to say this, but I was like 30 something, well, 40 something, the early 40s, late 30s at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And you taught me what I didn't know because I kept on searching and searching and searching for something that I didn't know what it was. And
Right.
when we sat down and talked, I learned finally the switch turned on. Like, I mean, I've always talked about a dimmer switch, and then finally the light started coming into my head, and I started understanding what it was that I was searching for,
Hmm.
and finding a belief in a higher power than what I've ever been around. I mean, there was times that I felt like I wouldn't say I was a non-believer, but I had a hard time believing in some things because I just didn't understand it. And then I did, and now I do. And what I like is I think that these younger people are seeing this in an earlier place than I did, and are learning from people like you, like Charlie Kirk, like Dr. Ben Carson, or
Ben
uh,
Carson, right?
yep, or whoever else is out there.
Hmm.
Because you watch people standing up for their beliefs in that aspect. It's making a difference in this world,
Yeah.
and I do have hope now that the world is turning into a way better place than it has been for a few years. I think you go through those roller coasters, and we're always going to have roller coasters. I, I was thinking about this. I mean, I'm lucky. I feel lucky that we live where we live, South Dakota, North Dakota,
Hmm.
where we aren't around the big populations and that kind of. I'm happy to live where I live, so I can think, so I can get away from people, so I can have
Right.
discussions though too.
Yeah, there where we live, there's less pressure and there's less anxiety and stress from some of the issues that we see that are causing dissension and division. We're a little bit insulated, I'd say, in the areas that we live in, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Like I love the fact that we don't have to deal with a ton of those major issues that keep getting thrown out into the cities and on the news and. Um, you get caught up in all that drama. On the flip side of it, there's people that we still have to deal with on a regular that are um, drinking that Kool-Aid, and it's
Yeah,
the best way I can put it, right?
yeah,
And so how do we deal with that for us, that one-off or that outlier that is bringing this mess in and really stirring the kettle in the pot? And are we able to speak to them calmly and effectively with love? So that's been my biggest hurdle is speaking and holding a line without coming across unloving,
yeah,
right? Like
and
it's it should be common sense, but it's not always. Like it doesn't get interpreted that way.
yeah, and I was more passive. Like I've let things slide because I just didn't want to stir the pot. We'll say, like, just keep the peace.
Yes. Yep.
But now I'm more vocal in my beliefs that I'm not here, like you just said, you're not, you have to learn how to hold the line and but still be kind and caring, which I think we really are. It's just that sometimes our kind and caring is helping other people find their way.
Right.
Like like here's the deal. Like if somebody gives me a tip of a guest, we'll just say, they might tell me the name, maybe even give me the number, but I do not. I don't. They don't call them. They don't. I am mostly the one that will get a hold of them. I'll say like Kelley Lovelace told me you might want to be a guest on the Don't Die Rusty podcast, or would you like to be? We'll give you the tools, but you have to decide. You gave me the
Hmm.
tools to decide if I wanted to pursue my faith, we'll say, or not. You didn't tell me you didn't, you led me there, but you didn't tell me I had to go there. If does
My
that
my
make
my
sense?
job, yeah, my job's to make the introduction, and it's your job to make the choice. Right? So I'm going to introduce you to Jesus. I'm going to tell you what I know about him, and I'm going to let you determine. And I'm kind of borrowing this from another guy. We got to decide, like, as the culture, is 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 God's word credible, and is Jesus credible? Because God's word tells us about Jesus, and Jesus is the word of God, and He tells us certain things in His word about Himself. So is He telling us the truth about who He is? And if He's telling us the truth about who He is, then we've got to make a determination whether we want to follow him, because that's the call. So that's a big deal. I didn't come up with it. I didn't say it. Jesus said it in John 14:6. I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. And in a world, in a culture where there is the preaching of a system where all paths lead to God, Jesus is saying that's not true. It's just me. And so my job is to introduce you to the man, and then it's up to you to decide whether he's credible and whether you can believe what he says. Does that make sense?
That really makes sense because
I can't make you do anything. I can't make you believe or not believe. That's the Spirit of God working in your life. So my job, my responsibility is to give you the information you need and introduce you to the guy. Because I'm not the guy. I know the guy, but I'm not the guy.
well, because I find it inspirational that more motivational, I shouldn't say inspirational, but more motivational to because my vote motivations are you lead that person to the place and introduce, but you give me a Bible to read. We'll just say now
Yeah,
you read it, we'll discuss it, see if my interpretation is like your interpretation, and what do you find out of this, and what was said, and what do you think? Because you and I have had many of those conversations,
yeah.
but and that's what has made me feel whole, we'll say, and that's what's given me confidence. And I think, and maybe that's the word I should use, because when you have a faith and a belief in something bigger than you,
Hmm.
and I think that gives you confidence.
Yeah.
Where were we at?
You were talking about how there was an introduction, there was discussion, and then I handed you a Bible and I said, "Read this, Rick, and then let's get together and talk about it." Like, what do you? I want to know what you think after you read it, and then you can ask me any question you want, and I'll share that. And I think that's half of the equation. My hope is the other half of the equation is you can look at me and go, "Well, the dude's living it." Like, he's not he's not saying this and then doing something different. He's not saying he believes this and then live a different way. His beliefs and what he says he believes about who Jesus is, and what he says about his belief and the way that we should live, he's doing it. The proof is in his own life. He's living that out in front of everybody. And I think that's the other half of the equation. So, what good would it have been for me to sit down with you and discuss God's word and then not live that way? Like, I'm out doing what everybody else is doing. I'm partying. I'm cheating on my wife. I'm gambling my money away and not caring about who I hurt. I'm, I'm drinking, and I'm doing all of these things that the world tells me I need to do, and I'm chasing after my own gratification and being selfish. But then I'm talking to you about being selfless, and I'm talking to you about living right, and I'm talking to you about living in such a way as we don't hurt people, but we help people, right? So there's two parts to the equation. One is having that conversation and sitting down with others. And the other part of the equation is not only am I talking about it, but I'm living it out that way in my relationship with my family and my wife and at my work and the people that God brings in across my path. I'm living it out. So that's huge. I think especially this generation, they see the hypocritical really quick and they go, "You're talking a good game, but you're not living that way. Don't come in here barging in here telling me how to live when you're not doing it yourself."
And I agree with you. That's the one thing that I do think they see and they pick up quite quickly is the
Hmm.
hypocritical part. And I wanted to get back like that's that's the way I try to lead wherever I go is lead by example because yeah, I'm not saying I was the best person, but you learn how to be that person. And when you learn how to be
Hmm.
that person and start leading by example, people see that. And when you're continually that person, and I'm saying you can look at me and you know this, you can see my social media posts or you can sit and talk to me and we're still the same person. I'm not putting out
Hmm.
a different Rick on social media as I am putting out in real life. And
Right.
and I also I want to get back to like when you have a faith in something bigger than you, some a higher power, a God like God or Jesus and or whatever, you start gaining the confidence that you don't have to. I'm not saying you don't have to worry about things, but I'm saying that you believe that there's a direction that you're going to go. You see that direction. And when you see that earlier, I wish I would have seen that earlier myself, but when you see that earlier, then you can have that direction. You become the better person. And that's what that's what Don't Die Rusty is about is being the best you. And when you're trying to be the best you, and that adds up every day. you
Yeah.
know the faith
Yep.
part because we talk about like in our whole lives when you lead by example. I mean, I'm not saying I've always said like in the last year, I went through the functional doctor. I went through that like just a mental and physical just down part, and then all of a sudden when I decided I needed to change things in me, um I found the functional doctor. I've started eating differently. I started doing things differently, and I feel a lot better. And I think that's kind of
Hmm.
like when you find your faith. You feel better mentally and physically when you have confidence and belief.
Faith is like a foundational bedrock, and I've talked about this on the podcast. The four big rocks for us, they become ingrained in who we are, and that's the foundation for our faith. Faith doesn't come from easy times and seeing all these blessings. Faith comes from the hard moments when you're absolutely searching for God, and you feel like and I felt this way where I just feel like He's left me hanging, and I don't know why. Where are you? What happened? Wh- Why am I in this situation? And why do I feel all alone? And I know that I'm not like in my head, but when you're going through it and it feels like it's all dark around you, you kind of feel like you've been abandoned a little bit. And so I've had those moments with God, and I think everybody, if they had a relationship with God, is going to has had or is going to have that. That's where faith is built. Faith is built when I can't see it in front of me. Faith is built. I just know. I know He's not going to leave me. I know that uh, I'm doing the right thing right now, no matter how hard it is. I know deep in my heart, and we need to be able to come back to that kind of faith. But it's going to take hard stuff. It's going to take things that we don't always understand. Like I don't understand. Like somebody asked me that question, why did this happen to the Kirk family? I don't know. I I don't know. I do know what the word says. The word says God will take whatever comes about and he'll use it for his kingdom, the growth and the gain of his kingdom. I can't tell you why. I listened to a guy, another pastor, talk about it, and he said, "Well, our days are numbered." So whether it was and I don't think he was being crass. I just think he was trying to be real with people. Whether it was a sniper on a rooftop, or whether it was a car crash, or whether it was him stepping on uneven ground and falling, that was his time. His days, his allotted number of days were up. I Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't know. But what I do know is that God's been using Charlie Kirk, even in his passing, to grow the lives of people in such a manner that they glorify him. And um that's amazing. That's an amazing thing. I mean, to sit there and watch his wife forgive that young man on national television, like how many of us could have done that, Rick? Right?
Well, so
How many of
early.
us? Yeah. Like how
I
many of
mean,
us could have said that?
I couldn't have 2 weeks after. In like, if that would have happened,
No way,
say
man.
no, I couldn't have.
Right?
I'm not saying I couldn't have done it, but I'm saying I couldn't have done it 2 weeks. That's
It,
too. It's
look,
a fresh wound. It's not even
it's
healed.
raw. You're right. It is raw, man. That's raw, and you could see it in her face when she said it. Yeah, and I look. I don't know if I could have got up there and done that. There was a part of her, that was not wanting to say that, but deep down inside, she knew she had to.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, she carries that the rest of her life. Like
Mm-hmm.
it does benefit both people to forgive, right? Like it does benefit me to forgive someone, even if they don't ask, because it's going to unburden me from carrying around all of that anger and hatred and frustration and anxiety and all that stuff. But on the flip side of it, there's a benefit to that other person to know, like, I'm not holding this against you. That's big stuff, man. And for it to be that raw and for her to be able to do that, that's strong. That is a person of faith who is saying, I forfeit my will to end you. I'm forfeiting that because Jesus loves you. That's huge. And
I,
you don't think the young people in our country didn't take that to heart? Go look at the strength. But she would tell you it's not her strength; it's the strength of God in her life,
I believe that too. But I mean,
right?
she was one to get up and talk like she did,
Yep,
and that was the most amazing. y- I know I couldn't do it. I mean, I can't say I couldn't do it, but I couldn't have done it as well as she did. My gosh,
yeah,
she is one strong person, and like you said, forgiving and standing up there with strength is one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. And then to think about this, think about I can, having that many people come to your husband's memorial and sit there for 5 hours
5 hours. Yeah,
and listen to everybody talk,
yep,
and then and you get up, and it was different people too. It wasn't just like all famous people. It was this and this and this and this. But how they affected you, how he affected you in
yep,
telling people how they had a relationship or whatever. You know what I mean? Like how they met Charlie or whatever. But
hmm
I, and then for her to say, we're going to keep on going to college campuses. We are not stopping now. We are not stopping that tour.
right,
And then to have so many people backing. I didn't. It's interesting. I didn't know the athletes. I didn't know the star, like the people that were listened to. You don't realize this stuff, and then they start speaking up, and that's the awakening I'm saying, because they aren't afraid to speak up anymore. They're saying
right.
their faith. They're saying this is the way of the world, and they said that we need to be going. And that's the awakening I'm talking about, because we'll say C.D. Lamb. I didn't know he was was friends with Charlie Kirk. I didn't know some of these
Yeah.
people that were, and they aren't backing down.
No,
You got,
there there might have been a little bit of fear associated with all this because and I get it. Like as a pastor, I have to fight that fear when I get up and speak. Like I want to speak truth and I want to speak to you straight. And the fear typically is, well, I'm going to get called a racist, or I'm going to get called a bigot, or I'm going to get called a chauvinist, or I'm going to get called all these names, and they're going to try to cancel me and blah, blah, blah. Well, Charlie Kirk proved to the world that you can still speak the truth, and they can try to cancel you, but they can't cancel the truth. Bottom line, they cannot cancel the truth. And when they tried to cancel the truth by canceling him, it just made the truth that much louder, right? And
oh,
so
I
now
did.
what you've done is you've eliminated any fear of people to tell the truth and be bold about it, right? They're not afraid of being canceled. They're not they're not afraid of you anymore, right? Whatever group that is that's pushing all of this, they're not afraid. They're going to tell you the truth. They're going to talk about the truth. They're going to ask you to prove that it's not the truth, and you're not going to be able to. That's a problem, right? It's a problem for the world. It's not a problem for us. It's not a problem for the kingdom. The card has flipped.
It has flipped, and that's what I mean, I'm loving seeing is finally the card is flipped, and you can't hide anything from the truth. You can't
Right.
hide, like you said. What bothered me was when people say things and they know that they're not telling the truth. It's
Right. Yeah.
when you have a
Yeah.
video of somebody saying stuff, when you have somebody right in front of you, when you have the words coming out of his mouth, these people's mouths or whatever, and you're saying, "Well, they didn't say that." Well, they did say that, or you know what I mean, or
Right.
this is what's going on. We have video. It's not. It's
Yes.
all this other
Yeah.
stuff, and you can't, you can't lie and say it's not true because we see it. It's
Yes.
and maybe I it's just amazing to me because things and you know me, I go off on different tangents and stuff like that, but it just popped into my head about the kids, these 20 to 25, 26, 27, 28. They went through COVID,
Yeah.
and they learned what freedom wasn't.
Right.
They learned in certain states that they did not have freedom. And I think if there was, if you're going to look at a conspiracy theory, if there was a way to try to knock down people, you just screwed up.
Yes. So
Because
listen, I believe this, Rick. I believe those 20 somethings looked and said, "You lied to us. You took from us. You took my graduation. You took my homecoming. You took my prom. You took my college away. You took these things away from me. You lied to us and took that stuff away from us." And they're gonna go, "No more. Nope."
think of how many kids were state championships. You
Yeah.
might have had one of the best teams. I'm a Florida State fan, and I know you're a Kentucky fan, but when COVID came out, Florida State was really looking good in the
Yeah.
basketball championships that year. You know,
Yep.
we haven't been back in that, but we're good in football now. We'll play in football anytime. Anyway,
Well, we still haven't figured out how to dribble a ball that's got points.
but when you lose your freedom like that, like
Yeah.
I was
Oh,
talking to some,
absolutely.
I can't remember where I was, but we were talking about this, and they lived in a different state. They just moved to South Dakota, actually, and they talked about losing their freedom. That's why they moved.
Hmm.
And I think by losing your freedom, because it's been proven, the mask thing, it's been proven how many people are starting to die because of a shot.
Right.
It, and it's been proven a lot of this stuff was not real. And then for us to lose our freedom because of that, and then be told to do things that we didn't want to do, some people.
Yep.
I lived in a wonderful state where I said, you didn't know what freedom was? Like you're talking to these
Right.
people and you're going, well, we had freedom here. I mean, I I lived like I was just pretty well normal. I'm not saying that people didn't wear their mask, but
Right.
some of them, but I didn't have to. I could go do what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And that was that I think these kids are learning what freedom really is, what freedom of speech really is. To
Right.
to have it proven that some some of these things were Google, Facebook, and Instagram or wherever else was told you do not. Uh, your algorithms are not having this put out. You are not
Right.
that scary, and they know that you can't hide this stuff, and yet
Right.
so then you start. I have faith. I lost my freedom, and I'm coming back to, well, now I have my faith and I have my freedom, and I'm not going to let it go.
Right. Yep.
You know, we're that's where the tide started turning, and I really believe that. So anyway, what a tangent. Anyway,
No,
but
no, I think it's right in the middle of what we're talking about. Okay. I don't think we run on a tangent. I think when we start talking about faith and we talk about this generation, and you bring up what morality is all about, what we are in the crux of it. We're right there. The pressure's been on, the heat's been added, and people are coming out of it going, we do know what right and wrong is, and that was wrong. Well, we do know what you can say and what you can't say. Freedom of speech, yeah, you can say whatever you want, but there's still consequences for misinformation, for lying, for slandering, for treating people this way through your words. There's still you can say it. You can say it all day long, but there's consequences for it, right? And I think that when we hear freedom of speech used as some code word or banner, it's about, well, I can say whatever I want and don't have to face the consequences. Well, no, that's not what freedom of speech is. I think Joe Rogan said it. He goes, sure, you can say whatever you want. That's the First Amendment. Second Amendment, make sure you can continue to say whatever you want. Because at some point you're going to make somebody mad and they're going to try to shut you up.
yeah.
So that's the importance of it, is there's consequences to freedom of speech. There are, and we've got to be able to deal with those consequences, good and bad. Um, you know, we have this situation. I listened to some of the Jimmy Kimmel stuff today as I was traveling, and I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Like, this is absolutely asinine that we're dealing with this kind of rhetoric out of people in the public eye. And then they're trying to pass off an apology. Well, it's not an apology. They're attacking the people that are upset with them and passing it off for an apology. And you're just like, what's wrong with this guy? Like, where's his moral compass? Like, what is it that, how does he not see that as something that's a problem for him to really just make light of and make a joke out of the death of a person? I don't think that's ever correct. No matter how the person died, no matter what the circumstance was, that's a human life. And for you to make light of it and spread misinformation about it, that's not good. Like, that's wrong. And I think people see that. And I think people are waking up to it. I think this generation is waking up to all of this garbage that's been thrown at them, and they're finding the truth in it. And they're starting to call baloney, right? Bologna sandwich. They're starting
well,
to call it.
well, they are, and they're starting to see what evil and good is. They're starting to
Yep.
see, like you may think something. Both of us may think something, but we don't need to say it at times. You have freedom of speech to say whatever you want to, but You
Right.
need you control what you say. I mean, we may get angry, and we may get uh, fired up about some things sometimes, but we try to say not. You don't have to hurt people to make yourself feel better. You don't have to, and you don't have to hurt people to try to gain popularity with people. You you're getting like everybody is getting Rick right here. You know, but I'm not going to say things when it doesn't need to be said. Like just let it go. And then there's times that I'm now there's times that I'm going to say, well, you know, I don't believe that, and this is how I believe. But I just think we need to learn. Not everything needs to be said. Not everybody's opinion matters. Not my opinion probably doesn't. It doesn't matter. But if people want to listen to it, that's great. But we need to just control ourselves. We need to be the best person we can. Just find that in your heart to say the right things. You know, you talk about I I was angry. I was angry at the Jimmy Kimmel thing because I look at how people were saying he got canceled and he has free speech, but then I start looking at hypocritical things because then I look at Tucker Carlson, I look at Gina Carano, I look at
Right. Yep.
all the people during COVID that was getting canceled, and and, and Trump was canceled. You know, I mean, they took him off of Twitter or whatever.
Yep.
I'm not on Twitter,
Yep.
but and then they were
But this is
controlling what we said, and that's hypocritical to me. Like, don't tell me freedom of speech here, but we don't get freedom of speech there.
it goes back to what I was talking about in my own personal life. Like I'm going to speak about Jesus. I'm going to show you his word. I'm going to talk about what he says in his word. But if I'm not living it out in my life, then I'm a hypocrite. So I've got to live it out in my life as well as speak it. And what people are seeing, especially this generation, and I believe this about them, is that they're astute enough to recognize, hey, what you're crying about now, you just did to somebody 5 years ago. When I was stuck at home dealing with COVID, I was watching you do this to the same people that it's like that are doing this supposedly to you. And it's like, this is crazy. That's crazy. That's insane. And I think people can recognize that, especially these Gen Zers, some of the millennials. I think they see it now. They're like, "Eh, that doesn't add up. You're trying to tell me 2 plus 2 is 5, and 2 plus 2 is not 5, it's 4. And we're sick of it. We're sick of the lies. We're sick of the deceit. We want we want genuine. You're not genuine. Like be real in front of us. At least we didn't have to agree with Charlie Kirk, but he was real.
Exactly.
We didn't get something else. He told us who he was. He told us how he lived, and that's what we got.
And that's the problem with this world. Like, you may tell me something I don't want to hear, but I listen.
Right.
And then I think about it. And then what if I start getting the mind turning? I turn and read a book. I watch YouTube videos or whatever else, or I study and try to think, is this my belief? And you got my mind turning. Where shutting up a person because you don't like what they say is totally different. That was interesting. I was watching something today, and it showed like they were proving people wrong that he didn't say that certain people didn't say things, and it was like they this this view of people saying crazy stuff and it's not been said has now they're being called out on it,
Mm-hmm.
and now they don't know how to handle it. And the problem is that I see is when you can't handle the truth, just shut up. Just shut up. you don't try to defend your position when it is the truth. Either let that question go by, go back and
Right.
find the answer, and then come back another time and tell me why I'm wrong.
Right.
But if you can't answer that question now, then then just shut up and don't try to shut me up because I'm winning this debate or whatever. Just keep keep moving on. Let me talk.
Yeah.
Because what I liked about Charlie was he'd put the microphone down and let him talk. He wouldn't
Yeah.
he wouldn't try to cut him off. He wasn't
Well,
arguing with.
that's the understanding of I'm going to have a dialogue with you. I'm going to have a conversation with you, and we're going to talk about some things. And you're not going to like everything that I say, and I'm not going to like everything that you say. But let's at least be gentlemanly about it. Let's at least have some offer each other human decency, and let's listen before we respond.
No.
The- It's just like let's just have a conversation. Let's not get angry and call each other names and get into a argument over nothing that ends up going nowhere. And I think that that's what we're seeing happen is, and it started with Charlie. We're going to start seeing more of this, where people are having just, I'm going to have a rational conversation with you, and at some point, people are going to see the right and the wrong. They're going to see the truth versus the lie, and we'll be able to figure it out. It is baffling how you can sit down and have a conversation like that with someone and they just refuse to see it your way from any angle whatsoever, right? Without any facts or any basis. And so I think it's important that we come from this point. Look, man, I got some guys in my life. And sometimes when I'm acting like a fool, they'll come up to me and they'll go, Kelley, man, you're acting like a fool. Well, I don't want to hear you talk to me that way. Like, don't talk to me like that right now. There's a reason I'm acting like a fool. That doesn't make it okay. They're
And,
still right. So
but
I
in
don't
it,
want to hear it. I still got to deal with it because it's the truth. And the
exactly.
truth is, I know I'm acting like a fool. I'm just coming up with all these excuses to continue that kind of behavior, that bad behavior. And my buddies, the ones who are really my friends, are going to be bold enough to say, you got to stop, dude. This isn't good for anybody. You got to stop.
Yeah, and it's funny. Maybe it's because we got older, but I always ask a question like, what could have I done better? What do you think about this? And like you said, I have those people that say, just relax. And it's funny, you can't tell a woman to relax, but you can tell me to relax because I don't get angry when if Cindy's
Just
listening to
chill
this,
out,
she knows it.
sweetheart. Yeah.
Yeah, if Cindy's listening to this, she certainly knows what I'm talking about. Um,
Calm down.
yeah, but I do. It's like calm down, think about this, and I sometimes I need that. Sometimes I need somebody to tell me, just relax, take a deep breath, just kind of
Yep.
reset, and then think about it. So it's a good deal. So anyway, well, I know you're down there in Kansas and getting ready for doing what you're doing down there with your mom and your stuff, and I'll let you go. Sierra didn't pop in. She's probably being that good farmer's wife, and
Yeah.
I was hoping to get her in here because I look at her as she has two kids. She's the entrepreneur. She's the farmer's wife. She's just going all the time, positive attitude. And I look at her as a strong person, and I see that like it's kind of like when I grew up. I see the strong mom that handled a lot and still went out and did stuff, and like it was amazing how I see the strength. Anyway, any closing thoughts?
Well, I final thought on this subject probably is coming to terms with understanding there is a creator, that creator loves you, that he proved his love for you by sending his son to die for us on a cross. Yeah. That creator has a plan and a purpose for us. And part of that was to bring us back into relationship with him as the creator. And then for us to understand the design that is in place. And I think that that's where it all begins to take off when I understand the creator's purpose and design for me. So continue to seek that. If you're listening, continue to seek that.
Yeah, because I think I just, like I said, I've grown spiritually and faithfully in for sure the last since we started our friendship. Actually, that's where I
Yeah.
really have grown. And I admit, like I said, I didn't know what I believed. I always said I didn't know what I believed. But once you started helping me understand the path and the way that I needed to go, just giving me direction, and I
Right.
and I had and I had to take the trail. I had to learn what direction I needed to go.
Yep.
But I think in that aspect, once you understand that there is a higher power, there's something bigger than you become a better person. You become confident. You can,
Right.
when you start believing in that, you become a better person and you change the world.
Yep.
So, well,
Yeah. That's the hope. So
yes. Well, thank you so much. You're sitting in the car, you're coughing and sneezing, and
yeah.
there's a fly. I saw a bug flying in there, and you're sitting here talking to the Don't Roy Rusty podcast, and you have a
Yeah.
lot of good things to say, and I enjoy it.
I I enjoy our time together, Rick, and being able to talk and share some of this stuff. And hopefully there's people listening that can draw a nugget or two out of here that will help them as they journey in life and build healthy relationships with people. Like that's important. So yeah, that's why we do what we do, right? To give people help and encourage them and let them know that they're not in this alone.
That's right. So, well, thank you for being my friend, and thank you for being on the Don't Die Rusty podcast, Kelley.
Absolutely.
Well, keep chasing your dreams, being the best you, and of course, don't die rusty.